Before we start the video, I'd like to ask for your support. This channel is new and we really need subscribers. It's very important to help keep the channel going. Please support us by subscribing so we can keep bringing you more videos with stories about pilots and operations. Now let's get into the video. Alexander Vraciu was born on November 2nd, 1918, in East Chicago, Indiana, to Romanian immigrants who were chasing the American dream in the steel mills of the region. He grew up in a blue-collar family where the values of grit and perseverance were instilled from day one. His old man worked the steel mills while his mother kept house and raised the kids, always hammering home the importance of education and hard work. During his youth, Vraciu showed a real fascination with aviation, captivated by stories of World War I flyboys and the early commercial flights that were starting to connect the country. After finishing high school, Vraciu enrolled at DePauw University in Indiana to study engineering. But the storm clouds gathering over Europe and the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 completely changed the trajectory of his life. Like countless young Americans of his generation, he felt the call of patriotic duty and decided to enlist in the U.S. Navy. His passion for flying led him to apply for the Naval Aviator Training Program, a decision that would not only shape his destiny, but also contribute significantly to Allied victory in the Pacific. Vraciu's training as a naval aviator was tough as nails and comprehensive. He went through various training bases, including Pensacola, Florida, where he learned the fundamentals of flight and naval navigation. The program was notorious for its sky-high washout rate, testing not just the technical skills of candidates, but their physical and mental toughness too. Vraciu showed exceptional aptitude right from the get-go, standing out for his precision in carrier landings and how quickly he picked up complex aerial combat maneuvers. His instructors noticed his natural ability for gunnery and his cool-headedness under pressure, essential qualities for a naval fighter pilot. During advanced training, Vraciu was selected to fly the Grumman F-6F Hellcat, one of the most effective fighter aircraft of the Pacific War. The Hellcat was a beast of a machine, designed specifically to take on the famous Japanese Zero. Powered by a 2,000-horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine, the Hellcat could hit speeds over 380 mph and packed 650 caliber machine guns. Vraciu quickly got familiar with the aircraft's characteristics, learning to exploit its advantages in combat, especially its superiority at high altitudes and its diving ability. In 1943, Vraciu was assigned to Fighting Squadron 16, VF-16, based aboard the aircraft carrier USS Lexington. This assignment marked the beginning of his combat career in the Pacific theater. VF-16 was an elite unit, known for its combat effectiveness and the quality of its pilots. Vraciu quickly integrated into the squadron, forming lasting bonds with his wingmen and demonstrating the natural leadership that would make him one of the most respected pilots in the unit. His first combat missions took place during operations in the Marshall Islands, where Vraciu got his baptism by fire. The missions included strikes on Japanese ground installations, bomber escort duties, and combat air patrols. It was during these initial operations that Vraciu scored his first aerial victories, shooting down Japanese Zero fighters in dogfights that tested every skill he'd acquired during training. Each engagement was a valuable lesson, teaching him the nuances of aerial warfare in the Pacific and refining his combat techniques. Vraciu's reputation as an exceptional pilot grew rapidly. His squadron mates admired his calm under fire and his ability to make split-second decisions in complex situations. He developed a particular combat technique, preferring surprise attacks from above, taking advantage of the Hellcat's superiority in diving attacks to gain the upper hand on Japanese fighters. His marksmanship was notoriously accurate, often needing only short bursts to down enemy aircraft, a skill that conserved ammunition and increased his effectiveness in combat. During operations in the Caroline Islands, Vraciu participated in some of the most intense aerial battles of the Pacific War. Japanese forces were desperately defending their positions, sending waves of fighters to intercept American attacks. It was in this intense combat environment that Vraciu cemented his reputation as an ace, racking up aerial victories with impressive consistency. Each mission brought new challenges, from dogfights against experienced Japanese pilots to attacks on heavily defended bases. The year 1944 marked the peak of Vraciu's combat career. During Operation Forager, the campaign to capture the Mariana Islands, he participated in some of the most decisive aerial battles of the war. The Marianas were of crucial strategic importance to the Japanese, and they mobilized significant air forces to defend them. Vraciu and his squadron mates faced waves of Japanese fighters in battles that often lasted for hours. It was during the famous Battle of the Philippine Sea, also known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, that Vraciu achieved his most celebrated feat. On June 19, 1944, during a single interception mission, he shot down 6 Japanese aircraft, setting a record that few pilots in aviation history have been able to match. The mission started as a routine combat air patrol, but quickly turned into one of the most intense aerial combats Vraciu had ever experienced. On that fateful morning, American radar picked up a large formation of Japanese aircraft approaching. The American fleet, Vraciu took off along with other VF-16 pilots to intercept the threat. Flying his Hellcat, he led a section of fighters toward the enemy formation. What followed was an aerial combat of extraordinary intensity, with dozens of aircraft engaged in deadly duels in the skies over the Pacific. Vraciu demonstrated exceptional tactical mastery during the engagement. He first identified a group of Aichi D-3A Val dive bombers, escorted by Zero fighters. Using his altitude advantage, he dove on the enemy formation, opening fire on the first bomber. His accurate bursts hit the Japanese aircraft's engine, which exploded in flames and plummeted toward the ocean. Without missing a beat, Vraciu quickly maneuvered to attack a second bomber, applying the same lethal technique with identical results. The third kill came after a brief turning fight with a Zero fighter. The Japanese pilot was experienced and tried to engage Vraciu in a tight-turning battle where the Zero traditionally held the advantage. However, Vraciu used his Hellcat's superior power to execute a steep climbing maneuver, followed by a devastating dive that put him on the Zero's tail. A well-placed burst was enough to destroy the enemy aircraft. The next 3 kills occurred in rapid succession during what Vraciu later described as one of the most intense fights of my life. He encountered another group of Japanese bombers, attempting to attack the American carriers. Demonstrating the coolness that characterized him, he methodically attacked each aircraft, using all his experience and skill to maximize the effectiveness of each attack. Within minutes, 3 more Japanese aircraft fell to his deadly accurate shooting. The 6th and final kill of the mission was perhaps the most challenging. Vraciu faced an experienced Japanese pilot, flying a Zero in excellent condition. The dogfight lasted several minutes, with both pilots demonstrating exceptional skill. The Japanese pilot tried various maneuvers to gain advantage, including a series of tight turns and dives. However, Vraciu kept his cool, waiting for the right moment to strike. When the Japanese pilot made a small tactical error, Vraciu immediately capitalized, positioning himself for a killing shot that sealed the 6th victory of the mission. When Vraciu returned to the Lexington after the mission, he was met with disbelief and then euphoric celebration. 6 victories in a single mission was an extraordinary feat, even by the standards of the most experienced pilots. His squadron mates, initially skeptical, quickly confirmed his claims through observations and combat evidence. News of Vraciu's achievement rapidly spread throughout the fleet, making him an instant celebrity among naval aviators. The psychological impact of Vraciu's feat was significant for both American and Japanese forces. For the Americans, it represented the air superiority they were achieving in the Pacific. For the Japanese, it was yet another demonstration of the growing disparity between their declining air forces and ascending American air power. The Battle of the Philippine Sea resulted in the destruction of a large portion of Japanese naval aviation, a blow from which they would never fully recover. After his historic achievement, Vraciu continued flying combat missions, accumulating more victories and cementing his reputation as one of the Navy's finest fighter pilots. He participated in subsequent operations in the Philippines, where he faced increasingly desperate Japanese resistance. During these operations, Vraciu was promoted and assumed leadership positions within the squadron, sharing his experience with less experienced pilots and contributing to the development of new combat tactics. Vraciu's leadership extended beyond his skills as a pilot. He was known for his ability to inspire confidence in his subordinates and his willingness to take on the most dangerous missions. Many young pilots considered him a mentor, learning not just combat techniques, but also the importance of discipline, preparation, and teamwork. His influence on squadron morale and effectiveness was undeniable. During the final operations of the war, Vraciu participated in attacks on the Japanese mainland, flying missions over heavily defended Japanese territory. These operations were particularly dangerous due to the concentration of anti-aircraft defenses and the presence of desperate kamikaze pilots. Vraciu demonstrated the same competence and courage that had characterized him throughout the war, contributing to the final effort that would lead to Japanese surrender. When the war ended in August 1945, Vraciu had accumulated a total of 19 confirmed aerial victories, making him one of the top aces of American naval aviation. His achievements included not just air-to-air victories, but participation in dozens of ground and naval attack missions. He received numerous decorations, including the Navy Cross, the Distinguished Flying Cross with multiple oak leaf clusters, and the Air Medal. After the war, Vraciu faced the difficult transition to civilian life, an experience shared by millions of veterans. He briefly returned to academic life, completing his engineering studies, but aviation remained his true passion. He stayed in the Naval Reserve for many years, continuing to fly and contributing to the development of naval aviation in the post-war period. During the 1950s and 1960s, Vraciu worked in the aerospace industry, applying his combat experience to the development of new aircraft and weapons systems. His unique perspective as an experienced combat pilot was valuable to engineers and designers working on the next generations of naval fighters. He also got involved in training programs, sharing his experiences with new generations of naval aviators. Vraciu's personal life was marked by stability and devotion to family. He married and had children, finding in family life the balance that many combat veterans sought after their intense wartime experiences. Despite his fame as a combat pilot, he was known for his modesty and reluctance to discuss his achievements, preferring to focus on teamwork and the collective sacrifice that made victory possible. Over the years, Vraciu participated in countless veteran reunions and commemorative events where he was invariably treated with great respect by his peers. His presence at these occasions served as a living bridge to one of the most heroic periods in American history. He frequently emphasized that his achievements were only possible thanks to the support of his squadron mates, ground crews, and the entire Navy structure that supported him during the war. Alexander Vraciu's legacy extends far beyond his individual combat victories. He represented a generation of Americans who answered the call of duty at a critical moment in world history. His story illustrates the qualities of courage, competence, and dedication that allowed the United States and its allies to prevail against totalitarian forces determined to dominate the world. His combat techniques and tactical philosophy influenced the development of American naval fighter doctrine for decades after the war. The principles he applied, meticulous preparation, exploitation of technological advantages, coordinated teamwork, and maintaining composure under pressure, continued to be taught in naval aviation schools long after he hung up his flight helmet. During his final years, Vraciu became a revered figure in the World War II veteran community. He frequently participated in educational events at schools and universities where he shared his experiences with young people who had never known war. His talks were marked by characteristic humility and constant emphasis on the collective sacrifice of the generation that fought against fascism. Many students left these presentations with a deeper understanding not just of the technical aspects of aerial warfare, but also of the moral values that motivated that generation to face extreme dangers in defense of democracy. Aviation museums around the country frequently invited Vraciu to special events, recognizing his historical importance and his unique ability to bring static displays to life. His presence transformed simple aircraft exhibitions into profound educational experiences, where visitors could hear firsthand how these machines were used in the skies over the Pacific. He had the special gift of connecting the human aspect of war with the technology that characterized it, helping people understand that behind every aircraft were real pilots facing real fears and making decisions that would affect not just their own lives, but the course of world history. Vraciu also maintained regular correspondence with other naval aviation veterans, preserving a network of friendships forged in the heat of combat. These relationships were deeply important to him, representing a connection to a time that had defined his life and character. Through letters, phone calls, and occasional meetings, he and his brothers-in-arms kept alive the memory of their fallen comrades and continued processing the extraordinary experiences they had shared decades before. Vraciu's modesty regarding his achievements became legendary among those who knew him personally. Even when pressed by historians and journalists to elaborate on his heroic deeds, he consistently redirected credit to his squadron mates, the mechanics who kept the aircraft operational, and the entire chain of command that made operations possible. This genuine humility didn't diminish his achievements, but rather ennobled them, demonstrating that true heroism often goes hand in hand with modesty and recognition of others' contributions. In his later years, Vraciu witnessed dramatic transformations. In the military aviation, he had helped pioneer the era of supersonic jet fighters, computer-guided weapon systems, and electronic warfare was far removed from the direct dogfights he had fought with machine guns over the Pacific. However, he recognized that the fundamental principles that had guided his career, courage, meticulous preparation, teamwork, and dedication to the mission, remained as relevant as they had ever been. When Vraciu reflected on his wartime experience, he frequently expressed a complex mixture of pride in the achievements accomplished and sadness for the lives lost on both sides of the conflict. While he celebrated victory over totalitarianism, he never lost sight of the human cost of war. This mature and balanced perspective made his accounts even more powerful, as they conveyed not just the glory of heroism, but also the sobering reality of the sacrifice that freedom requires. His reflections on leadership became particularly valuable for subsequent generations of military officers. Vraciu had learned that effective leadership in combat depended not just on technical skill, but also on the ability to inspire confidence in moments of extreme danger. He taught that a leader must be willing to assume the greatest risks and never ask subordinates to do something he wouldn't be willing to do himself. This philosophy of leading by example became a trademark of his career and influenced many young officers who had the privilege of learning from his experience. Vraciu's family was always a source of strength and stability during his post-war decades. His wife provided the emotional support necessary for him to process the intense wartime experiences and find purpose in civilian life. His children grew up hearing stories not just of aerial combat, but also of fundamental values like duty, honor, and service to country. This transmission of values across generations represents perhaps one of Vraciu's most important legacies, perpetuating ideals that transcend any individual combat achievement. When Vraciu's health began to decline in his final years, he faced this new battle with the same dignity and courage that had characterized his youth. Even confronted with the limitations of advanced age, he maintained his optimistic outlook and genuine concern for others' welfare. Visitors frequently commented on how he could make them feel special, showing genuine interest in their lives and offering encouragement even when he was the one who needed support. Alexander Vraciu's death in January 2015 marked the end of an era, but also served as a powerful reminder of the importance of preserving the lessons and values that his generation defended. His funeral was a celebration not just of his individual life, but of an entire generation that had faced tyranny and prevailed through collective sacrifice. Elderly veterans, active military officers, and ordinary civilians gathered to pay tribute to a man who had embodied the best of American character at a moment of supreme test. Vraciu's epitaph might well be found not in words carved in stone, but in the continuity of the values he defended and the inspiration his story continues to provide. Every time a young military pilot prepares for a dangerous mission, every time a leader chooses to lead by example, every time someone puts collective good above personal gain, Alexander Vraciu's spirit lives on. His true immortality lies not in any physical monument, but in the perpetuation of the ideals for which he risked everything, and for which so many of his contemporaries gave their lives. The extraordinary feat of shooting down 6 enemy aircraft in a single mission will forever remain one of the brightest moments in American military aviation history. However, the true measure of Alexander Vraciu's greatness is found not just in that moment of individual glory, but in the totality of a life dedicated to service, marked by integrity, and lived with constant awareness that freedom is a precious gift that must be protected by each generation. His story serves as an eternal beacon, illuminating the path for those who seek to understand what it means to serve something greater than oneself and find in the process the highest form of human fulfillment possible.